I'm Alex D'Annunzio.
And I'm Jenna Nassif.
And we are coming to you live from the Keystone Heights news station, where we are bringing you breaking news.
We've just got word that back in 2011, there was an outbreak at the National Institute of Health, where a bacteria infected patients and led to multiple deaths.
We have here with us Brooke Revere, where she will inform us more on the bacteria itself.
The bacteria Klebsiella pneumoniae carbapenemase are a group of emerging highly drug-resistant gram-negative bacilli that cause infections associated with a significant morbidity and a 50% mortality rate. The bacterial pathogen is responsible for roughly 15% of gram-negative infections in hospital ICUs. There are two main modes of transmission that these bacteria are spread, and they are through person-to-person contact and contamination of surrounding environments, and it is not spread through the air. Typically, when patients acquire this so-called nosocomial infection, due to it being contracted in a hospital or healthcare setting, they have weakened immune systems, they are sick or injured people, or have recently had a major operation. Some signs and symptoms that come about when infected can be a sudden onset of fever, coughing, blood-tinged sputum, shortness of breath, or even a UTI. The three most common pathways it took were caught by causing pneumonia, bloodstream infections, and even wound infections. The only types of treatment that they really have for KPC are antibiotics such as polymyxins and tigecycline, but not ones that are things such as penicillin or cephalosporin, due to the fact that they can cause great concern because they have reduced susceptibility or resistance. Ways to prevent another outbreak like this occurring would be things such as effective hand washing and wearing gloves all the time in patients' rooms.
Thank you, Mrs. Revere. Next, we have Casey and Jared talking about the outbreak at the NIH and the patients affected.
Drug-resistant bacteria lurks in hospitals and sink drains, on the equipment passed from room to room, on door handles, on the hands of clinicians and hospital workers, and in the ventilators and tubes. In 2011, KPC came to one of the nation's flagship research hospitals, the Clinical Center at the National Institute of Health in Maryland. They still do not fully understand this outbreak.
The first patient was a 43-year-old woman who was transferred to the NIH from a New York hospital with a highly resistant bacteria called KPC, also known as Klebsiella pneumoniae carbapenemase. This was the first case of KPC that the NIH had ever seen. They immediately went into high alert and tried to do as many things to prevent further spread of this to the hospital. This patient was later discharged, and the hospital thought they had contained the bug.
Several weeks later, a 34-year-old man hospitalized with a tumor tested positive for KPC. The patient shared no known link, they spent no time in ICU together, and used different caregivers and equipment. Over the next few months, more and more patients tested positive for KPC, and the NIH used many combinations of antibiotics, and nothing seemed to work to fight off this outbreak.
The hospital even created a separate ICU, but somehow it spread beyond that. Doctors even tried several combinations of antibiotics and even an experimental drug that still didn't work. Ultimately, 11 infected patients died from KPC.
The last patient infected with KPC came a year after the outbreak. He arrived to NIH due to the complications from a bone marrow transplant, becomes infected with KPC, and dies.
Thank you, Jared and Casey. Jenna and I will now explain the experiment at the University of Virginia to show how the bacteria grew on the sinks.
The project from the University of Virginia grew out of the knowledge that patients are dying from infections with multi-drug resistant bacteria that they acquire while hospitalized. Now the University of Virginia has charted their pathways. The research was published February 24, 2017 in Applied Environmental Microbiology.
To explain how the bacteria make their way into the sink, initially, the bacteria colonize the elbows of the drain pipes. The investigators showed that from there, the colonies grow slowly towards the sink strainers at the rate of roughly 1 inch per day. It frequently takes a week for the colonies to reach the sink strainers. From there, bacteria quickly get splattered around the sink where they can be picked up by the patients.
For the experiment, the researchers engineered a mock sink station using 5 hospital-like sinks side by side but separated by a 0.6 meter high plexiglass barrier. They sterilized all the individual plumbing pieces, sinks, and surrounding area. Earlier work had found that bacteria could dwell in P-traps and mysteriously reappear in sinks. So researchers tried inoculating a sterilized P-trap with E. coli that have been engineered to glow green.
With just water, the E. coli stuck around in the P-trap but didn't move up. But more than just water goes down hospital sinks. You have to think of bodily fluids, discarded beverages, feeding supplements, and other fluids get poured down too. To mimic this, the researchers added some fluid nutrients on a daily basis over 7 days. With food, the bacteria thrived and formed a biofilm in the P-trap and started to move at the rate of 2.5 centimeters each day. By day 7, they had made it to the drain.
Researchers then set up petri dishes full of nutrient-laden agar around the sinks. Any pipe-climbing germs that got scattered and landed on a plate would grow on the nutrients and form visible colonies. The researchers found that the green glowing E. coli spattered up to 0.76 meters away from the drain and on touchable surfaces. Researchers found that the germs spread to neighboring sinks and all but one sink were infected. The researchers concluded that the P-traps could be problematic to public health.
Thank you for joining us here at Keystone Heights News Station. Have a great day.
Bacteria Klebsiella.
You said it.
The investigators showed.
The last patient infected. Okay, one more time. Go. No, ma'am.